opportunity came, to come back to Vancouver, I was really excited about it, and I wanted to really take advantage of the opportunity to its fullest. And so I spent some time researching like what's best practice around moving into a new superintendent role. And from looking at that research, this idea of a team came out.
I think the most common mistake superintendents do when they walk into any new job is assume that they know the place. Assume that because they were superintendent elsewhere, because they've had this lifetime in the profession, or because they have a doctorate or superintendent credential, every place the same. And they're not. And they're absolutely not. And even in Jeff's case, where he used to work in Vancouver, right? The idea of looking at the organization, the district, from a fresh lens, a fresh perspective, and a district-wide perspective, I think was super smart and really necessary and important.
So the superintendent transition team was composed of a pretty broad range of stakeholders, both from within the district and from within the Vancouver community that have direct and peripheral connection to students, staff, and kind of the district as a whole.
I knew I wanted to get a lot of different perspectives, and I thought bringing them together in kind of a smaller community so they could hear each other's perspectives would be a pretty powerful experience. So ask different groups for like who might you want to represent you on this team, and kind of went from there.
So the intention was for us to come together and give Superintendent Snell some guidance around what we're hearing in our respective corners of the community, and how we might direct or lead him in leading the district according to community member need and interest.
It was a facilitated discussion over a period of months. There were tools used to help people understand their own style and maybe the style of others that may learn differently, may perceive through a different lens, and that kind of thing.
In just a really nice way to begin, every meeting began with, what's something happy? What's something of gratitude? What's something of hope? And honestly, coming out of the pandemic for the last few years, words of hope mattered. But then we rolled into an agenda of goal setting, talking about what we thought was important about those goals. One of the things that the committee did, I think, beautifully was put us in small groups, different small groups every time we met, and have an activity, a work task, some place for us to give feedback, to talk about what we thought we valued in terms of vision and mission, school goals, strategic goals, and how those might look in terms of activities and how those activities might be measured.
When I interviewed for the superintendent job, the district provided me a lot of data, and it was stakeholder outreach. They asked people what's going well in the district, where are there opportunities to improve, and so I had access to that, but not everybody else had access to that information.
Dr. Snell let us know in the beginning, this is not a one and done, and it's going to be a process, and some of these requests or suggestions are going to take a little bit of time to implement. So.
We had 6 to 8 students. Any given meeting, we'd have 3 or 4 of them on hand. They were awesome. They just really did a great job of not just articulating their own experiences, but really trying to understand the experiences of their classmates and bring that forward into the conversation.
I think the other thing I found that was new, and I don't know why I didn't know this honestly, but how incredibly smart and articulate high school seniors can be and high school juniors can be, and the ways in which they could fully participate and had a voice and had no problem speaking up, and really had a lot of both positive and constructive things to think about for the district.
I feel like I was certainly listened to. The groups are very collaborative, and there's already been implementation of some of the goals that our superintendent here has tried to accomplish. For example, the Student Advisory Committee, which is just taken into effect this next school year, is very exciting for me.
This has been a need in the business community for some years, but it was exacerbated with the pandemic, of course, everything was. And that's the need for a qualified and willing workforce. So part of the lens I brought to it was, how do we create line of sight from the work being done by the schools with the students to a transition into the work community.
Vancouver Public Schools, like WSUV, are embedded in the community. And we are both here from very different educational purposes, but we're both here for educational purposes to serve Southwest Washington. And the perspective that I was able to bring to the group was, what happens to graduates who choose to be college going could bring? What are we looking for? What is Clark looking for? What's WSU Pullman looking for? In other words, when you graduate out really amazing kids, what should they look like for higher education and the rest of the world beyond?
We recognize that Superintendent Snell brings a lot of expertise to his role, and we're grateful to have him back in the Vancouver community, but a lot has happened since he was originally a part of the Vancouver community, and rather than having next steps happen to us, it was really meaningful to have next steps considered by us collaboratively so that community input could be a part of the process, and that kind of a two-way communication stream was started. Doesn't end now that the transition collaboration this school year has more or less concluded, but that we can maintain those two-way communication channels moving forward, because he values the community that he serves, we value the role that he plays, and he brings expertise, but so do we, so it's kind of an even exchange, I would say.
Well, I think the more I do this, the more I realize I don't know. I think being comfortable with recognizing that, I have a skill set and that's why I was hired for this job, but part of maybe also why I was hired is because I want to be a good listener, and I want to try to figure out the best way to bring people together.
From a staff perspective, being able to share what building experience motivates us, but also keeps us up at night, knowing that there are still gaps in addressing student need that we'd like to be able to fulfill, and would like support from higher level decision makers in order to really engage with boots on the ground.
One of the questions I got asked a lot as I was coming around the district and kind of making my inaugural visits and stuff, people would say, well, what's your vision for the district? And I find that to be kind of an interesting question, because I have clearly, I have experiences that lead me to think about best practices for schools, but I think my job is to bring collectively the vision together, right? So our board of directors, community members, students, our staff, what do they think is best for a school district? And you can only do that if you're listening and engaging people. So for me, it was more about an opportunity, and I was just really grateful that people would give me that time and give me their perspective and share their wisdom.
I heard a lot of people talk about the importance of the superintendent, any superintendent, in communication and trust, building both a really solid communication structure and having that based on a foundation of trust and respect.
One of the priorities for me was that there's a circular loop of communication between the district and the students. It's not just the district telling the students what's happening, but the students are also telling the district what they'd like to happen. That was at the front of my mind.
There's a level of communication where people just need information about the lunch menu for the day and activities, and that's really important. And it's important for us to deliver that in a way that people can receive it. But what we heard a lot is that people want to be involved in decisions. They want to understand how decisions are made. They want us to close the loop on, if this was an incident happened or there was an opportunity and people gave input, they don't want it just end there. They want to kind of feel okay, what happened as a result of that? I think in any, whether it's public schools or any industry or being able to reach out to the people that are your customers or your family or however you're defining that group that you're working with is just really critical. You want them to feel like they're a part of what you're doing and then they're informing what you're doing. And when our business is serving children, there's nothing more important to a parent than knowing what's going on and knowing that what they offer is somehow making the school system better.
What I saw with the superintendent's intent was to have a district workforce who was all on the same page, pulling in the right direction, focused on kids' outcomes, and talking about differences in order to get them resolved, as opposed to talking about differences as a point of division.
I think the benefits for kids are a more coordinated, focused, collaborative group of folks working to meet their needs. And I'd also say that as part of that collaboration and communication is the fact that kindergarten to 12th grade, what they're getting is consistent, coherent, and aligned because everybody's on the same page. They know what the goals are and they know what activities the district is engaging in to get there.
You have a year cycle, right? And so you plan for a year, you want to make everybody's year the best year it can be. And then through the course of the year, you're trying to take in that feedback and input and think about, well, how can I make next year even better, right? And so I think that's part of that two-way communication is seeing that my input mattered and shaped what's going to happen next year for the experience. And so I heard that. That's not, I mean, I think that seems like common sense when you talk to somebody. Of course they want to be heard, and of course they want their input to matter.
The students are the main focus of the district. Without the students, you don't have a district. And so I think it's very important for a superintendent, especially Dr. Snell, to be able to listen to those students and be able to incorporate that feedback. I think without that feedback, you don't really know what you're doing to the fullest extent. And I think being able to know your community by listening to them is a great way to do that.
I just appreciate them so much, and you know, we would meet after hours, right? And so whether they were a student that was in the school all day and doing activities, or a staff member that was working, or a community member that had another job and then was coming in the evening to work with us, like that's a gift of time and wisdom and experience, and so can't thank them enough.
My hope would be that we stay connected, that the district stays connected, that the committee stays connected, that administration stays connected to the idea of strong communication, clear vision, inclusive committees. Because while those were important short-term goals, they're also enduring.
The thing that I observed and took away from the process was the passion demonstrated by Dr. Snell and his staff as we met various members of them for creating an environment where kids can be successful. And if that passion holds, no telling what can be accomplished.